Hello, and welcome to our extended disc 30-minute webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about how is extended disc different from disc. It's a topic that we revisit every once in a while, but it's a question that we get asked on a daily basis. Before we get started, however, I just want to let you know that if you're joining us later, you need to leave, or you want to share this information with any of your colleagues, we are recording it and we'll put it on our extended disc YouTube channel. We welcome your questions as always, but unfortunately, due to time, we won't be able to answer them live on air. So please put your questions in the questions section, and I promise you we will get to you as soon as the webinar is over. So joining me today is my guest, President of Extended Disc North America, Markku Kauppanen, my colleague as well.
Good morning, and sorry I sound terrible. I got a cold over the Labor Day weekend, but I promise I feel much better than I actually sound, so it's all good.
Yeah, so don't think that it's another person here. It is Markku, just with a very hoarse voice. So Markku, we get asked this question all the time. Every day.
Yeah, you get asked every day, probably a couple of times a day. I get asked this every day. So yeah, it's a topic that people do want to know about because there's a lot of misconceptions about what disc is and extended disc is. And hopefully we can answer those questions on this webinar. And really, I think the way I think is best to approach this topic is really kind of what we learn from our clients, because almost 100% of our clients use some form of disc in the past. So we really chose topics for this webinar that we hear most frequently from our clients. What they've noticed is difference between disc and extended disc.
Yeah, and actually some people don't even know that there's a difference between extended disc and disc. And oftentimes they're like, oh, I already took disc. Do I need to take it again?
Yeah, I think that's the most common misconception. And I certainly understand it because, people talk about disc and it's assumed that somebody owns it, or it's one particular product that's out there. It's just that's not the case. So why don't we start with the background and kind of keep it the big picture so people really can understand what the differences are.
All right. So let's start with kind of what is the DISC model. It was in 1921. Forgive my pronunciation. Markku is much better at it than I am. Carl Jung.
That's close enough for
me. Developed the 4-quadrant model of human behavior. And he himself didn't actually develop the DISC model that we know today, but the DISC model is based on his Jungian model. William Moulton Marston, not long after, in 1928, was the father of the DISC model. He took that 4-quadrant model that most of us are familiar with, and he essentially, the way I say it is, the easiest way to say it is he named the quadrants. He enhanced the model that was the 4-quadrant model. So no one owns DISC, right, Markku?
Yeah, I think this is the biggest misconception, that somebody actually owns the DISC, but it's really, the way I look at it, it's a public domain, or some people call it open source model. So as a result, there are several tools that are based on DISC model. They have developed their proprietary tools, like we have at Extended Disc. But nobody owns DISC, so there are different DISC tools, and each of those tools, they measure different things. And I think that's the biggest misconception. Now, I think the reason so many of our clients use DISC in the past is that extended disc is still based on disc. So the D style is still a D, and I style is still an I, and so on. So our clients don't have to learn a new concept. The transition and making that upgrade is so easy. They can now able to do more with the tools, but they don't have to learn a lot of new concepts. And I think that makes the transition so easy.
So you might be thinking, why do so many companies choose to use DISC? Why is the DISC model itself so popular? Well, as we have stated, it is simple. People understand it readily, and it's easy to understand the DISC styles, the D, I, S, and C. When it's easy to implement, it's easy to your participants, your employees, they pick it up very quickly.
Very fast. People attend a DISC training session and they are thinking about their family members, their colleagues, and they identify their DISC style within 30 minutes, and they can really quickly understand, hey, now I understand why so and so behaves this way and somebody else behaves quite differently. So the model is very simple to learn, and of course if something is simple to learn, we are more likely to put it into practice. And that's really the key thing about the disc, is that people begin to use it. Managers start asking their employees that, hey, what style was that your customer? What this style was your prospect? And what this style is your colleague, and so on. So it becomes something that it creates a common language that people can use, and it creates an awareness that we are different, not better or worse. But in order for us to really be more successful with other people, we have to have that confident self-awareness, and then we have to make conscious decisions about how to modify our behavior.
Exactly. So the simplicity of the disc is also the what helps to make it so powerful, because no matter how powerful a tool is, if it's too challenging or too difficult, we just won't use it.
Well, all of us have so many demands on
Mhm.
everything else we have to do at work, and if you have to do something else on top of that, and if it's complicated, people simply are not going to use it, and that is the main reason I believe that DISC is actually put into practice. But certainly, DISC is not without criticism either.
Right. So, what are some of the criticisms of DISC? Well, we say one of the strengths of it is that it is simple, but then people are concerned that maybe it's too simplistic.
Yeah, I think the biggest criticism about simplicity is that when people take the questionnaire over time, the results would change. Somebody would get the results and, hey, I used to be an I style 6 months ago and now I'm a DI style. And the reason for that is that these tools have traditionally focused on what the person thinks or believes or perceives they need to be in the current environment. And of course, as the environment changes, our perceptions of our environment changes, the results would change. And ultimately, what it creates, it's a little confusing, and we can't really create a accurate starting point for our development activities because we don't know who the person actually is. It's like trying to get to a destination, but if you don't know where you're starting from, it's impossible to get there. So you need that accurate starting point for development. And because there's no what's called a test retest validity, this really never had a very strong one there, and the result would change. And people say, hey, how can I use it? Because I don't know if that who the person truly is.
Exactly. I mean, I talk to people all the time, and a lot of people I work with, as Marcus says, they are already familiar. They've used a disk tool, not necessarily extended disk, and they said, "Oh yeah, when I was at company A, I used to be an IS, but now, then I transferred to company B, and when I took it again, I became a DI."
That's right. So the result would change, and we could not really identify who the person is. And in those situations, a lot of people would use other tools that are able to measure that hardwired style. I think the most common one is, and probably most well known, is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI, which is an extremely well researched tool, and I think it's a powerful tool, and it measures that hardwired, they call it personality type. When people retake Myers-Briggs over time, the results remain quite stable. They remain the same. But also hear from our clients who have used MBTI in the past is that it really is a great tool for self-discovery. And I think it's always very powerful to get information about who we are. When we have a more confident self-awareness, as I call it, it always will help us make us more successful. But the challenge is that it's a little bit more complex to use in helping us modify our behavior, in thinking about who the other person is, trying to identify their personality type. It becomes more complex.
And we know that when it becomes too complex, as I said earlier, we tend not to use it.
Yeah, one client told me that, we use Myers-Briggs, but then when I asked the employees 3 months after the training program, almost none of them could remember the full letter type of their own type, much less trying to identify the types of my colleagues, my prospects, my customers. And you really need that information in order to make clear, intelligent, and conscious decisions about how to modify my behavior. I need to know who that other person is.
Exactly. So let's focus now a little bit on what does the extended disk tool bring, or what does it do?
Well, I mean, I think simple way to say is I can't speak. Sorry about my cold. The most simple way to look at it is that we started developing extended disk about 30 years ago, and really the idea was that how do we keep the user friendliness of the disk model. Because if people use it, it's user friendly, you need to have that. But at the same time, be able to measure that hardwired style. So really what we are doing is that we're still using the disk model, but with the design of the questionnaire, we are measuring who the person actually is. So really what it's providing us is the accurate identification of somebody's style. When people retake extended disk questionnaire over time, the results remain quite stable. I always like something one of our clients said is that what disk measures is who the person is on the first date, but what extended disk measures is who is the spouse I wake up next to 20 years later. And he said, that's what I want to know.
So, Marku, can we talk about now what is extended disk versus other disks? So, putting them side by side.
Yeah, and let's still focus on what are we actually measuring. If you look at this scale from unconscious behavior to conscious behavior, the DISC tools have traditionally mentioned this conscious behavior. And what we mean by conscious behavior is that how I think I need to be in a given role, which typically is a work role. Sometimes it can be desired behavior, like how I think I want to be seen by others, my team members, by my boss, other people around me. And that's always, often that's really driven by the culture of the organization. How I can be more successful is by fitting into this organization. And one of the key drivers typically is that employees manager. What my manager expects, what kind of behavior I think he or she wants me to exhibit. And that's what really drives my DISC results. Of course, this kind of behavior, because it's not who we naturally are, is our adjusted behavior, and it takes more energy. And then we have, of course, the unconscious behavior.
Well, it's unconscious behavior. Extended DISC, you can see, measures unconscious behavior. It is your spontaneous behavior. It's how you typically react to something without thinking about it, because it doesn't take any energy. It's your natural hardwired style. Basically, we say, whereas your conscious behavior is transient, it constantly changes, depending on your environment and your culture. Your unconscious behavior is more of your steady, most comfortable way of going about the day. How do you prefer to do things? And also, it's your pressure behavior. So, all day long, hopefully to be successful, we know when to adjust our style. But when we are feeling strong emotions, like we're tired or we're stressed, that same focus and ability to adjust our behavior is not as present, and we tend to revert back to our most comfortable natural behavior. And I always say that under pressure we become more of who we are.
Yeah, we revert to a natural style. And if you really want to identify somebody's style, see that person in a kind of a pressure situation or something unexpected, like my classic line, when the fire alarm goes on, you can really see how people react, and we react with our natural behavioral style. And of course, we do look at the extended disc, what we call our profile one. We do look at that adjusted behavioral style as well, but our focus is clearly on that hardwired disc behavioral style, because we believe that in order for us to develop somebody, we need to have a very clear starting point from where we are making those behavioral adjustments.
Exactly. And not all DISC tools measure that. So let's talk about, again, just what else is different about extended DISC from other DISC tools. Let's talk about our tailored assessments.
Well, that of course is one that comes up frequently, probably daily as well, that when people were using DISC assessments, they were forced to select from a handful of off-the-shelf reports. And sometimes that could be just fine and would fit their needs, but with extended DISC, what's unique is that we can tailor the assessment results to our clients' unique preferences and their unique needs, meaning that how much information we provide, what kind of information we provide, how do we make it specific to certain kind of job roles or industries. They're able to make those decisions with our help. We can tailor those assessments. And ultimately, what it does is that when the respondent gets their report, they feel that this information is for me because truly it was designed for their specific applications.
Yeah, and so let me just show you just a couple of our individual assessments so you can take a look at them. So we have the standard individual assessment, and I always say it's a great place to start. You can use it in any situation. it is our standard individual assessment. But let's just say you're working with a bunch of managers or leaders. We also have leadership and management assessments. What's the difference? Some people ask me. Managers are more the day to day, and specifically if they self-identify as a manager, again, it resonates. It's a assessment that's just for them. The leadership encompasses the manager's assessment, but it also adds in that kind of broad range future focus aspect of leadership. You don't even have to necessarily be in a work situation. We have what we call student development assessments. We have coaches, athletes assessments. And what's great is with all these individual assessments, let's just say the person later on you'd like to think about, oh, how do I reinforce DISC with them? We have what we call behavioral action plan or reinforcement assessments, where again they don't have to take an additional questionnaire to generate all of these reports.
Yeah, and of course we have hundreds of different reports. I think sometimes I know you probably get this much more often. What's your list of assessments? And we really can't provide a very up-to-date assessments because we are creating new ones all the time based on our client request. And sometimes the things are just very unique in terms of, like, here we have a customer service assessment. Well, customer service assessment can work in many different kind of organizations. But for example, when I've shared in many webinars that I used to be in banking, and of course tellers are in customer service, but I've noticed that tellers view their role different from us as a regular customer service because they're dealing with customers' money. And when we provide those teller assessments rather than customer service assessments, they are much more open to the content of their reports because they feel it is for them and it's truly designed for them. We provide the terminology that is relevant to the tellers, and of course the behavioral competencies we use is more relevant to tellers. But again, this is a couple of samples we have. You mentioned we have athlete assessments. Even there we have for swimmers, football players, all kinds of athletes. So the list is really endless.
Endless, to be sure. And then not just these individual assessments that you're looking at, we also have what we call multi-person assessments. So we have our team assessments. We also have our work pair assessments. And again, our DISC goes beyond the workplace. We even offer a couples assessment. And then, as Marcus said, hopefully you don't get there. But if you need it, we do have a conflict resolution assessment.
Yeah, with the team assessments, what I found is that some clients want very comprehensive team reports. Others prefer more of a macro level because their specific needs and preferences. So again, like with the individual assessments, these can be tailored to a client's needs, images. We even do private labeling often for some clients who really need that.
And I know that, hopefully we don't sound like a broken record, but I think one of the top things about extended DISC that our clients love is that all these reports, these assessments that you see, come from one questionnaire.
Well, there's two things. One is you don't want to have your employees complete questionnaires over and over again because that has cost to it. But also, of course, it saves the client organization money because you don't pay per assessment result, you pay per person. So you can reorder the results in different ways that without having to pay additional money. So you pay only one fee and you get all these not only different kinds of individual assessments. So for example, somebody may get that more of a general individual assessment. Later on, you think you can reorder the results in leadership format or stress and time management. There's no additional cost for that. And of course, same for the team and pair assessments.
Exactly. And that's definitely one key selling point. Let's talk about other differences that we bring with our extended DISC tools.
Well, one difference is that is the validation, because we talked about that extended DISC measures the hardwired behavioral style, but we need to make sure that that behavioral style is actually who the person is. So the results need to be validated. But not only do they need to be validated, but they need to be validated for different languages. So every couple of years, we do a revalidation, make sure that the assessment results are still valid for those individuals, that the tool is still measuring what it's intended to measure. And as you know, Christina, when people complete the questionnaire, it is critical that people are able to take the questionnaire in their native language. If they are not, you're not going to get a valid results. And in fact, with many assessments, respondents can even just blindly select responses, and you still get a assessment report. And if you really stop and think about that, you realize that there's no way that can be valid. If a person didn't even read the questions, they just randomly chose some options, and you get a report, you know it's not valid. And we have, I believe, an ethical responsibility, because when people get their assessment results, frequently they make pretty important decisions based on that information. So if we know that the results are not valid, we should not provide any information.
Exactly. And when I train people and I talk about the invalid results, some people might initially see it as a weakness of our tool. Well, why can't you identify the DISC style of someone? But I like to really point out that it is a strength of the extended DISC tool, because as Marku mentioned, why would you want to give misinformation? If someone just blindly checked answers, that would not be providing, the purpose of the tool. And the invalid results themselves can give you key information. Was the person overthinking it? Were they distracted? Were they rushing? Or was the environment such that they couldn't produce a valid result?
Yeah, there could be many different reasons. And bottom line is that if the results are not valid, we don't want to provide information. Like if you go to the doctor and you don't have a clear, crisp MRI image to make an accurate diagnosis, you don't want the doctor to make decisions based on that. Let's get a better MRI image and then move forward.
Exactly. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the administration. As an extended DISC client, one of the things that some of our clients love is being able to manage and admin their own DISC information and including their database, including the reports, reordering reports. They can do that all online. They don't have to wait for us. They can tailor and reorder the different types of assessments. They can view assessment results online, so they can see, oh gosh, what was the DISC profile of so and so. They can look at that, and what I think really takes our tool to that next level is being able to analyze and use it as an organizational dashboard.
Well, really what it is, it's you can look at your organization or parts of your organization real time without having to print reports. You can slice and dice the data any way you want to, and it really becomes more an analytical tool, a dashboard for organization. You can make better decisions about what we can do to make us more successful.
Yeah, I think, some of the clients have given us great ideas about how they use it. They've used it to look at, departments that, may be underperforming or need further development. Are there certain styles that thrive in certain parts of their organization? Are there certain DISC styles that tend to leave our organization? So these are ideas that our clients have given us on how to use it. So it's really, I think, unlimited in terms of how you can use the admin site. And just one final note about it, just like with everything else, we try to keep it simple. There's no additional fee to access your admin site. Now, not everyone accesses their admin site.
Yeah, different clients have different preferences. Some clients don't need it. Some use it quite a bit. So it just really depends on what everybody needs.
And I think one of the things we talk about is our level of support. I can't tell you how often, and I'm proud of it, our clients are impressed by our level of service. We make it a priority in our organization.
Yeah, when I got involved 20 plus years ago, I realized that one of the things is really important is that facilitators especially get responsive support. A lot of times they have last minute requests. They might need some ideas for help in terms of technical applications, of our customer service staff would help with that. But they also need, I think, select people like you. You are a senior facilitator and a coach here. Sometimes they need to talk to others who have more experience in using the assessment. Hey, what should I do for this particular training session that I have coming up next week? So providing that support in a very responsive way, I think is very important.
And another thing I'm very proud of is our online resource center. So for our clients specifically, you get access to 24 hours. You don't have to wait for us to be open. Sometimes you don't want to talk to someone. You just want to get the information right away. Maybe you want some sample reports, or you want an agenda on how to do a 2 to 4 hour workshop, or you just want some PowerPoints to look at. You can find that in our client resource site. We also have support materials, not just designed for your participants, but for you as a facilitator. So I always say that think of us as kind of your support staff, because sometimes we don't have them, but now you do.
Let me talk about something that is very timely now as organizations are thinking about 2019. They are planning for their training and development initiatives and how much money they can spend on these different things. And that's what we call an unlimited use license. We certainly provide pricing that is more conventional. Typically, other disc assessments, you charge per report. We charge per person. So you get the multiple reports as we talked about with no additional cost. But the unlimited use license is becoming more and more popular with organizations because for two reasons. They want to be able to predict ahead of time how much they are going to spend on assessments in their fiscal year. They don't want to have any surprises down the road when they are 9 months into the fiscal year and they basically spend all the money they have allocated for assessments already. So here they know upfront how much they're going to spend, and ultimately, probably more importantly, I'm sure, it also saves them money. So based on the organization size and how they use assessments, we give them a fixed fee for unlimited use of assessments. And I'm sure that many people in the audience who may want to learn more about it will have our contact information at the end of the webinar.
And then, of course, something that's near and dear to my heart is we offer certification. We offer train the trainers. As we say, again, we try to make it simple. You are not required to go through certification to use our assessments, although from my personal experience as a coach and trainer, it definitely enhances how you deliver DISC. So we have different options here too. We have the virtual certification, meaning I can do it with you one-on-one, your time, your schedule, your agenda. We also have public certifications. They're usually 2-day certifications that you can come and learn about DISC and how to deliver it with other people. If those of us that like that type of experience.
Yeah, but I know the virtual is by far the most popular, but there's still a lot of people who want that face-to-face interaction, not only with the facilitator, but with the other participants
Exactly.
as well. And I think the public one is a good fit for folks who prefer to learn that way.
And the one I like enjoy, not that I don't enjoy all of them, but I love on-sites because I get to go meet other people on their on their setting, and I get to see new places. So we also offer on-site on-site certification. Again, we are flexible. We adapt it whether you want 1 day, whether you want 2 days. And then last but not least, we also offer with our certification, if you're needing HRCI or SHRM recertification credit hours, man, that was hard to say, we offer those units as well. So we do have a lot to offer, and many of the topics that Marku and I talked about today are the feedback we get from our clients.
Yeah, when I got involved, like I said, 20 plus years ago, it really took me a while to really understand the differences, but our clients have told us over the years what the differences are. And I think that's really is the main reason almost 100% of our clients use some other form of disc in the past. If somebody likes disc model, there's a good chance that they like extended disc. I'm not saying it's a perfect fit for everybody, but for a lot of people, it certainly is. So hopefully this webinar helps to answer some of those questions that people have about the differences.
Exactly. So we do have another webinar coming up. We have one next Wednesday, September 11th, on how to use DISC to become a better negotiator.
Yeah, for some reason, this topic has come up a lot in conversations and emails and requests from our clients on how to use the extended disc in negotiation settings. So we'll be talking about that, and I think that's going to be a fun topic.
All right. And then if you want to learn more about that webinar or any of the other webinars that we have coming up or our blogs, don't forget to visit our www.extendeddisc.org page, and you'll find all of our webinars and events coming up on our events section.
That's right. On the top toolbar, I think it's on the right. Just click on events. You see what's coming up.
All right. Thank you for joining me today, Marku, and everyone else have a great day.